The Double Standard. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Catherine, Princess of Wales, is the nemesis. She embodies many factors that Harry's wife wants for herself. Her grace, her emotional empathy, her magnetism, her style, and the fact that she's married to William, who will become the next King of England. Harry's wife deems all of those things should belong to her. She cannot stand for Catherine to be praised. She cannot stand for Catherine to be adored. And yet, when she sees so many people talk of favourable terms about her, and then, in relation to Harry's wife, she sees that people talk about her in an unfavourable way, her narcissism automatically tells her they're the haters, they're the racists, it's not fair. But there are instances where something needs to be done about it. In Harry's wife's world, she sees that double standards apply, that she sees people praising Catherine for things that Harry's wife has done, where Harry's wife has been condemned. And naturally, her paranoia as a narcissist cries, "No fair!" Harry's wife operates with this paranoia running through her to motivate her to pursue the prime aims. And one of its manifestations is people are repeatedly out to get me because of my skin colour, rather than people don't like me because of my behaviour. Because Catherine embodies all of the things that Harry's wife believes that she is, but she actually isn't, when she sees Catherine gaining praise for those things, her narcissism tells her, you should be getting this praise as well, and the fact that you're not is manifestly unfair and demonstrative of the hate-filled nature of this particular audience. They're racists. They're not giving you the praise which should be due to you because they're hypocrites. They praise Catherine, but not you. And thus, you end up with articles, such as the one that I'm going to make reference to, which seeks to redress the balance, but fails to appreciate two main factors. The first, Catherine is an empathic individual. Harry's wife is a narcissist. Secondly, many of the instances are not like-for-like comparisons. Let's find out what the article written by Sarah Lang in The Kit has to tell us. The headline is, "When it comes to Harry's wife and Kate, the double standards are alive and well." Recent royal history is littered with examples of things that were met with gushing approval when Kate Middleton did them. Notice they failed to give her a proper title, even though this was only written a couple of days ago. But depicted as an affront to common decency and all that's sacred when Harry's wife did the very same. Well, there are instances where they don't actually do the same, and therefore the comparison is somewhat incorrect. But if we just pause there, why is it that Catherine receives praise in certain circumstances where Harry's wife does not, even though they ostensibly seem to be doing similar things? It's actually quite simple. Catherine hasn't spent her time engaging in what was essentially elder abuse. Catherine hasn't gone around telling lies. Catherine hasn't shat upon an institution that welcomed her. Catherine hasn't tried to make it all about her. Catherine hasn't sought to merch off the appointment that she has had. Catherine is genuinely decent to people, and people recognise that. Harry's wife, by contrast, decided that she would change the institution that she was joining, that she told lies, that she made life difficult for people, that she engaged in the bullying of individuals, although she denies that she engaged in behaviours that were unsuitable, that she sought to make it all about her, that she took hold of a prince, caused him to become a simp and dragged him away across the ocean, and then, having decided that they were no longer going to be working royals, spent her time talking about the royal family, slating the royal family from afar, knowing that they couldn't answer back, and making the last months of the existence of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth miserable as a consequence of her smearing. People are not stupid. They see the differing behaviours, and whilst it may well be correct that they engage in similar behaviours in terms of, for instance, the way that they conduct themselves when pregnant, the way that they conduct themselves when showing off their fashion, the way that they conduct themselves with children, etc. The fact is, Catherine is more widely liked, apart from the vitriolic shuggers who take every opportunity to demonstrate their hypocrisies in relation to her, and Harry's wife is not. Why? Because of their behaviour, which means Catherine is given a more sympathetic approach, but people approve of her because she's a decent human being who has behaved herself. Whereas people look for fault with Harry's wife, perhaps even finding it where it isn't actually there, because they don't like her because of the way that she has behaved. Apart from a couple of knuckle-draggers that demonstrated their idiocy when Harry's wife first came on the scene, nobody turned around and automatically said, "Oh, I've got it in for her" from the very off. Why would they? Most people were curious. Oh, look, there's an American divorcee that's a person of colour coming to join the royal family. That's fantastic. Oh, look, Prince Harry's really happy. I'm pleased for him. Let's see how she gets on. I think this is a really good thing that she's coming into the royal family. That, ostensibly, was the attitude of most people. But then, purely as a consequence of her own conduct, her narcissism started to show. Some people saw it fairly quickly, even if they didn't know that it was narcissism. Other people took a little longer to get to that point. But the point is, nobody was set against her apart from a few idiots. From the very off, they gave her a chance. And she is the one, because of the way that her narcissism behaved, that essentially fucked up the golden opportunity that was presented to her. And that caused people to think, I actually don't really like her. And therefore, their attitude towards her becomes less favourable. And thus, that is played out in a difference between the way that people see Catherine and the way that people see Harry's wife. But commentators such as this one fail to understand and completely miss that point, that Catherine's emotional empathy as an empathic individual has shaped her behaviours in a way which has drawn favour, and Harry's wife's narcissism has shaped her behaviours which has drawn criticism. And that is why they are treated differently. It's their behaviour, nothing else. But the article continues by explaining just a few examples of this: cradling their baby bumps while pregnant, not wearing a hat while on official business with the Queen, painting their nails with coloured polish. During Harry's wife's tenure as a working royal, the endless double standard applied to the duchesses was a toxic hallmark of the press's reaction to her, fueled by the misogynistic tendency to pit women against each other, as well as thinly veiled xenophobia against the newcomer. Well, there's no doubt that the press stirred things up, and it is the case that there are instances where it is created as Duchess versus Duchess, as it used to be the case. However, that is only a sliver of what's going on, and it's actually related to the behaviour for the reasons that I've already explained. And again, throwing in the xenophobia also is not correct at all. The fact, the article continues, Harry's wife is no longer officially employed by the firm hasn't stopped these two women from being held to a bizarre comparative rubric. Behold, 3 very recent instances that prove that the double standard is alive and well when it comes to Harry's wife, Duchess of Sussex, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, now gets her title correct. Let's see if the comparisons are actually legitimate ones, and if they are, then we know that the difference in treatment comes down to the way that they're both perceived based upon their behaviour. Number 1. When they stay home to look after the kids. Last week, the palace announced that Kate would be skipping the Earthshot Prize ceremony in Singapore in order to support Prince George while he was writing exams. An example of her emotional empathy. A week or so before that, Harry's wife missed the first half of the Invictus Games, saying when she arrived that she was late to the party because she'd been making sure Archie and Lily were settling into the new school year. You know from parts passim that this is facade management and attention-generating, fuel-generating behaviour by making a grand entrance. Also demonstrates the hypocrisy because, as you know, she didn't exactly hurry back to see the children, instead stopping off in Portugal for a little mini-break. These two women, the article tells us, were essentially doing the same thing, shouldering the burden of parenting so their partner could go and do something that was important to them. But the reactions couldn't have been more different. Kate's absence was praised as putting family first, per the Express, or as one commentator on X put it, good mother. Harry's wife's absence, by contrast, became a matter of intense speculation over what it meant for the state of the Sussexes' marriage. The thoroughly loved-up show the couple put on when Harry's wife did turn up in Germany seems to have quieted those rumours for the moment. So, is this a fair comparison? It isn't. Why? Well, the fact is, Kate is skipping the ceremony and not turning up at all. She's not saying, oh, I'm going to stay at home for part of the ceremony to look after George and then come part way through. We also know that because Catherine is empathic, she's actually doing it because she cares about her son. She's not doing it in order to look like a good mother. She's doing it because she is a good mother. Contrast that with the behaviour of Harry's wife. She decided to turn up part way through. There was no need for her to turn up part way through. She has nannies that look after the children. She's perfectly content to spend time away from the children and has done so on numerous occasions. Harry also. Furthermore, as we know, she was in no rush to get back, and therefore to portray it as, oh, I wanted to spend extra time with them, doesn't ring true. And we know it doesn't ring true because she's a narcissist. So it's not a like-for-like comparison, and we know that the real reason why she turned up late was to make a splash so that she had her own entrance, so everything would be about her. This writer fails to appreciate the difference between the two personalities, empath versus narcissist. The article continues by explaining, as well, questioning Harry's wife's fitness as a mother has been a favourite weapon of her detractors, dating as far back as moonbump truthers, who like to claim that she was never pregnant yet somehow simultaneously trapped hapless Harry into being with her by having children as quickly as possible, preying on his own childhood trauma as a way to cling on to power and fame. It's vile stuff, particularly so when held up against how Kate's parenting is viewed. She's often painted as the ultimate modern royal mum, injecting well-adjusted warmth and normality into a dysfunctional family. That's because she's an empath, and making early childhood development her cause célèbre. Note another double standard here, which is the fact that neither Harry nor William have come under any sort of critique for the choice to leave their kids for significant periods to fly around the world. In this, sadly, Harry's wife and Kate are equal. Again, I'm not sure that's entirely accurate, as Harry certainly has faced criticism in that regard. Item 2 that this article touches on, the way they wear their hair. Last week, Kate wore her hair in a low bun. Her recently cut butterfly fringe left loose about her face. The reaction was low-key, yet positive to this switch-up for the princess, who generally reserves her updos for more formal events than visiting a children's centre. Compare this to the furor that ensued after Harry's wife wore her own version of this common hairstyle in her early days as a royal. Her so-called messy bun became an early harbinger of the kind of coverage she'd receive in her new role. While some praised it as a cool, refreshing take on traditional royal styles, many others clutched their pearls at the way it broke non-existent protocol. This was heavy with the subtext that Harry's wife's artfully undone look in a milieu that favours highly manicured, lacquered-in-place grooming was evidence of her not fitting in as a mixed-race American woman, a dog whistle if there ever was one. Well, I think that is quite the reach there. That Kate in 2023 was allowed to wear a messy bun while Harry's wife was heavily criticised for doing so in 2018 was astutely observed by TikTok royal commentator Matter of Fact in a viral video that pointed out this double standard is less about the two women wearing similar hairstyles and more about the different ways their doing so was received. While Kate is generally the beneficiary of these double standards, they do make it challenging for her to evolve. The messy bun situation is a case in point. While she's worn her hair up in the past, last week was the first time she'd experimented with this particular styling, and she was immediately accused of copying her sister-in-law, stealing the fresh modern ideas she'd brought to the job. This is unfair, of course. Kate and Harry's wife both happen to be women of similar ages, living in the same trend cycles. Just because Harry's wife wore a messy bun or a power pantsuit or a Gianvito Rossi heels, whenever Kate goes near those things which thousands of other women wear, she's compared yet again to Harry's wife. That is a fair observation that demonstrates that it works both ways. But, again, why is it that Harry's wife faces criticism with regard to her hairstyle compared to that in relation to Kate? It comes down to two things. First of all, Harry's wife often plays with her hair, and for some reason that gets under the skin of people, whereas Catherine doesn't. But again, the perceptions of the two women differ based upon the personas that they have cultivated, even back in 2018, that people see the behaviour, and therefore, as human beings are apt to do, where someone presents themselves in a way whereby they show service, they're a decent individual, people like that, and therefore are less likely to be critical of them. With Harry's wife causing problems from nearly the get-go, turns people against her because of her behaviour, and therefore they are quick to find fault with her. It might be the case that there's little to discern between the two hairstyles, but the reason that Kate is treated differently is because people actually like her, because she is a likeable individual based upon the way that she behaves, whereas Harry's wife has proven herself to be largely unlikable to large sections of the populace based upon her own behaviour. The final example that's provided of these supposed double standards relates to the interaction with celebrities. In addition to leaving her children to attend the Invictus Games, Harry's wife seems to have compounded her sins by then tacking on a rumoured mini-break to Portugal, where gossip account tipped that she and Harry were spotted deep in conversation with Chris Evans and his new wife, Alba Baptista. More about that later. These are not, of course, the first celebrities that the Sussexes have been spotted hanging out with. Just last week, they were snapped at a fundraiser at Kevin Costner's house along with their Monty Shit Show neighbours, Oprah and Ellen DeGeneres. A few weeks before that, Harry's wife was dancing at a Beyoncé concert with Kerry Washington and Kelly Rowland. Every time Harry's wife, with Harry or not, is spotted in the presence of another famous person, she is accused in the comments section of social climbing, trying to cement a spot on the A-list that she never achieved with her acting. But these are people who can relate to her bizarre experience of extreme fame and public attention, and are worried enough about their own privacy to not compromise hers. Well, the reason why people accuse her of social climbing is precisely because she's engaging in it. Because she's a narcissist, she uses people. She's not actually interested in them, save to the extent that they serve a purpose for her towards the prime aims. And of course, the author of this article either doesn't realise she's a narcissist or rejects the fact that she is, and therefore fails to understand that the accusations of social climbing, trying to cement a spot on the A-list despite never having achieved it, doing so with her acting, are all driven by her narcissism. The article continues by explaining that while Kate isn't known for having celebrities in her inner circle, she and William do rub shoulders with their fair share of famous folk, whether that's the sports stars they were with at the Rugby World Cup recently, the actors they walk the red carpets with, or the influencers they gravitate towards with their podcast appearances. Indeed. But the difference is, Catherine involves herself with them not because she's looking to control them, draw fuel from them, steal character traits from them, and manage a facade. Hence, why people's responses are different. At no point, however, is Kate accused of trying to cultivate relationships with these people for her own ends. In fact, the dynamic is always presented as her being down to earth and approachable. That's because she is, and it's because people like her. And she's described as such, as if she's some sort of superior being lowering herself to the level of the common folk, out of the goodness of her own heart. No, that's the interpretation the writer is providing. An echo of the idea that royals are divinely touched in a way that the rest of us aren't. But when Harry's wife, who became royal by the same mechanism as Kate, interacts with another household name, it's grasping, reaching, scrabbling for status and relevance. Well, that's because it actually is, because that's what narcissists do. The author of this article concludes what's even more unfortunate: these double standards or double binds show no sign of going away any time soon. Well, actually, whilst they may appear as double standards, there are not. The reason that they are treated differently is that Catherine is liked by many people based upon the way that she has conducted herself and behaved, governed by her emotional empathy. The reason why Harry's wife is criticised so much is that many of the things that she's criticised for are actually as a consequence of her narcissism, the social climbing, for example, the way that she uses people. And in other instances where it's nothing to do with her narcissism, in effect the fact that she's got a similar hairstyle to that of Catherine, people still criticise it, maybe unfairly, but simply because they don't like her. And she brought that on herself as a consequence of her behaviour. It's interesting to see how there's a further attempt to engender sympathy for Harry's wife through an article such as this, but it's easily picked apart by pointing out that there are complete differences between the two women based upon their personalities. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.